Hello, my name is Preston Holtree, and my presentation is on the pain of social exclusion. Let's see. Alright, so, social exclusion. Individuals depend on social connections for survival, a sense of belonging, and mental well-being. Social exclusion is Social exclusion is not just an uncomfortable feeling. Studies show that it activates biological mechanisms typically linked to physical pain. Eisenberg and Lieberman suggest that the brain has developed a neural alarm system that identifies threats to social connections similarly to how it perceives physical threats. Given that being left out has historically posed a danger to survival, mainly due to the potential loss of protection, resources, and group identity, the brain perceives social disconnection as a significant threat. And this presentation examines the neural, emotional, evolutionary, and behavioral reactions to social exclusion. Social exclusion impacts nearly every aspect of life. Experiencing ostracism heightens the likelihood of depression, anxiety, feelings of loneliness, and a bunch of other negative emotions that anyone could really start to feel. Long-term exclusion is linked to an increased risk of premature death, comparable to known risk factors such as smoking or obesity. It manifests in many environments: schools, workplaces, personal relationships, online interactions. And gaining insight into these effects allows researchers and practitioners to create interventions that foster a sense of belonging, enhance social skills, and build emotional resilience. Researchers have investigated exclusion through controlled lab experiments. One of the most common techniques, cyberball, involves participants engaging in a virtual ball tossing game with two other players who ultimately cease passing the ball to the participant. Although this type of exclusion is brief, lasting only about a minute or two, it elicits significant emotional and physiological reactions, including decreased self-esteem, feelings of hurt, and heightened stress hormones. Eisenberg and Lieberman demonstrated that the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, DACC, a region that plays a role in sensing physical pain, also shows activation during experiences of social exclusion. The DACC acts as the brain's alarm system, as mentioned in an earlier slide, alerting us to issues whether they are physical or social. When subjects experience exclusion while playing cyberball, their DACC activity rose in direct relation to their reported emotional pain. Likewise, the anterior insula, which identifies internal bodily threats, also exhibited activation. Now, evolutionarily, experiencing social rejection poses an immediate threat to four essential needs: the need for belonging, self-worth, a sense of control, and a feeling of meaningful existence. Individuals frequently feel emotions such as sadness, anger, shame, and anxiety. Research identifies two primary types of behavioral responses, those being prosocial and antisocial behaviors. Prosocial behaviors include an increased urge to reconnect, greater sensitivity to social signals, and conformity. Individuals who have been excluded often become more aware of facial expressions and body language, hoping to reintegrate into group interactions. And antisocial behaviors typically show signs of aggression, hostility, and impulsiveness. When individuals cannot restore their sense of belonging, they may react with anger. Lab experiments indicate that participants who feel rejected are more likely to display aggression towards strangers or react with hostility. Research provides compelling evidence that alleviating physical pain can sometimes lead to a reduction in social pain. For instance, DeWall demonstrated that daily use of I still haven't figured out how to properly say this word. Acetaminophen, excuse me for my butchered pronunciation of that, diminished reported feelings of social hurt over time and lowered neural activity in response to rejection in the DACC. While some studies have struggled to consistently replicate this finding, the results suggest that there are common neurochemical mechanisms involved. These findings reinforce the concept that social pain is not solely an emotional experience, but is deeply rooted in physical processes that can be influenced by both biological and cognitive methods. Who excludes you is very important. Being sidelined by an in-group, such as friends, teammates, or those sharing your identity, triggers more intense emotional and neural pain responses compared to being rejected by an out-group. From an evolutionary perspective, being included from an in-group threatens the stability of meaningful relationships. Children and teens are especially at risk for the impacts of being socially excluded. During adolescence, the significance of peer relationships and a sense of belonging becomes a lot more prominent, and the brain systems for monitoring social interactions are highly responsive. From a clinical perspective, individuals struggling with social anxiety, borderline personality disorder, or depression may exhibit either an increased sensitivity to exclusion, with heightened activity in the DACC, or a diminished reaction to emotional numbness. Online communication increases the frequency and severity of exclusion. Being overlooked in group chats, omitted from tagged images, unfriended, or ghosted triggers similar neural and emotional responses as being excluded in person. Unlike face-to-face interactions, online exclusion can be public, ongoing, and unclear, which heightens distress. Interventions function on various levels. At the individual level, techniques such as cognitive reappraisal, self-compassion training, emotional regulation skills, and mindfulness aid individuals in reshaping their interpretation of rejection and alleviating distress. At the interpersonal level, initiatives that focus on teaching empathy and other things diminish feelings of exclusion in educational and workplace settings. At the organizational level, implementing anti-bullying policies, fostering inclusive team building, and creating structured peer networks enhance a sense of belonging. In terms of digital design, platforms can mitigate exclusion by enhancing moderation, curtailing public performance metrics, and introducing prompts that foster inclusive communication. And that is the end. Here are my references. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.